Hey guys, my name is Loveless and we are back with Quirk Knife. This story is of course amazing. I'm gonna say it every single chapter. But I'm gonna make these intros a little bit more shorter because even with me going back over everything, it's annoying as shit to hear my voice talk when I'm not reading. So let's get on to it. Several days passed, and Izuku didn't have to punch any other pro heroes in the balls. Although he wouldn't have if he had to. The sky was dimming on Dagaha Beach since Izuku and Hitoshi? The two of them had a lot of schoolwork today and had lost track of time. So the sky was already dimming. Hitoshi was lifting a tire above his head and placing it gently on the wheelbarrow, ignoring the sounds of the metal piercing metal. "You're getting stronger already, Toshi," Izuku complimented over his shoulder, whipping a new throwing knife that he recently got his hands on. In fact, his collection was growing, and Izuku couldn't complain because he hadn't been spending anything on his tools. The collection consisted of 5 small throwing knives, 2 large ones, and the original knife that he found amongst the piles of trash. "Yeah, because you barely help anymore," Hitoshi grumbled while he collected a broken microwave, careful not to cut himself on the jagged edges. "I do too. I like coming back at night," Izuku said without thinking, freezing mid-throw in his response he let slip. "You come back at night? What about, sleeping?" Hitoshi put the microwave down and dug his hands onto his hips. "You're sleeping, right?" Izuku nervously stared at the blade of his knife, using his sleeve to wipe off any muck and dirt. "Yeah?" Hitoshi frowned. That wasn't very convincing. Hitoshi rolled his eyes and threw the knife again, hitting his target. "Look, I just don't sleep very well, and this is a good distraction." Izuku was aware his health was probably deteriorating. He was much thinner. His face had become sunken in and gray. His eyes seemed less green, and dark circles were growing even worse, not to mention his hair. "Insomnia." Hitoshi returned to cleaning. "That's why you can't sleep." Izuku never got any diagnosis for anything except for his quirklessness. He didn't want to worry his mother. Not like she was around to worry anymore, though. "Probably," Izuku shrugged, and put the small dagger into his pocket of his sweatpants and sweater. Although not the safest way to carry them. Oh well. "I have insomnia too," Hitoshi mumbled. "But you shouldn't be outside by yourself at night. It's not safe." Izuku's face scrunched up. His friend currently sounded much too similar to his mom for his own liking. "Just fucking drop it," Izuku snapped, before he could stop himself, but he didn't feel bad. Hitoshi fell silent and ran a hand through his hair, clearly not wanting to cause an argument. The two cleaned in tense silence. Izuku could have cut the air with one of his daggers. "Your throwing skills are improving," Hitoshi broke the mute atmosphere. Yet he wouldn't look at Izuku. "Like, scarily better. Is it your quirk?" Izuku nearly dropped a chunk of wood he was holding. "His quirk?" Izuku felt his lungs contract on the thought of his last friend. His first and only friend. "Deku!" Kachan yelled across the room. "You were supposed to come to my house yesterday. Did you forget, stupid?" The spiky blonde stopped in front of Izuku and crouched down. "Are you crying again? Stop being such a crybaby. Who hurt you?" Izuku looked into his best friend's eyes. "I didn't forget, Kachan." The other boy sat down completely and crossed his arms. "What, so you didn't want to come over? You think you're better than me? Stupid Deku." Izuku shook his head violently and held his hand up. "That's not it, Kachan. I had to go see the doctor." Kachan frowned further and pressed his hand to the small boy's forehead. "You don't feel warm. Don't lie to me." "It wasn't for a cold." Izuku hesitated and dropped his voice into a whisper. "It was for my quirk." There was a suspicious shine in Kachan's eyes. "Did you finally get a quirk? It's about time. Jeez, what is it?" Kachan wouldn't understand. They were best friends after all. More tears came to his green eyes. There is no quirk. Huh? Kachan, the doctor said I'm quirkless. Kachan's mouth slowly formed into a smile, but it wasn't the type of smile that made Izuku feel safe and happy. No, it was the type of smile that Kachan gave while people complimented his quirk and told him he'd make a great hero. It was the smile of someone who knew they were better. Quirkless, Kachan announced. The other kids turned their head in his direction of the outburst. Kachan doubled over in laughter. You? You? A Deku? That's also quirkless? It all makes sense. I see now. Izuku shunk in on himself and pulling his knees to his chest. What does Kachan see? Explosions popped from Kachan's palms as he stood, looking down on Izuku as he spoke. I see how much better I am than everyone else. You're nothing but a stupid, weak, quirkless Deku. The teachers never reprimanded Kachan for his actions all through the school years, and Izuku never told his mother the same lies. Oh, I fell on my way to school. Gym class got a little intense today. It was my fault. I wasn't watching where I was going. Kachan? No, I burnt myself in science class. I wasn't paying attention. Hitoshi was looking at his shoes, his analyzing pulling Izuku out of his panic. Maybe an accuracy quirk? At first I thought it was some sort of intelligence quirk, and Izuku was so tired of pretending, of lying. It really wasn't worth it anymore. If Hitoshi left, it wouldn't be anything new. So he took the jump, cutting Hitoshi off and blurting out what he was afraid to admit. I'm quirkless. Hitoshi stopped talking immediately and looked at Izuku with an unreadable expression. It was almost enough for Izuku to want to dive into water to drown himself. Why did this feel so much worse than when he did it with Kachan? Okay, Hitoshi said slowly. Anyways, before you rudely cut me off, did you not hear me? Hitoshi huffed. I fucking heard you. Now let me finish what I was saying. Damn. I was saying that an intelligence quirk and accuracy quirk go hand in hand, yet they're different. Meaning you either have two quirks or no quirks, and that just makes you really fucking smart. Izuku's mouth was hanging open. Lanky, are you fucking deaf? I said I'm quirkless. Aren't you gonna, beat me up or something? Hitoshi laughed. What are you talking about? Why would I beat you up? Izuku was steadily growing more and more frustrated. Because I'm a Deku. I'm a stupid, quirkless, worthless Deku. Hitoshi stopped laughing after that. Why would you want to be associated with me, a quirkless fuckwipe? Izuku laughed, but it wasn't a happy one. Hitoshi sat down on a half-broken table. Well, I don't care. If you think your lack of a quirk makes you what did you say? A Deku? Then that means my quirk makes me a villain, right? Izuku scratched his head. What? I didn't say that. But you're classifying your lack of a quirk as your personality. So shouldn't that mean I classify my evil quirk as my personality too? Izuku opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He hadn't thought about it in that way, but it wasn't the same, right? Izuku, being quirkless doesn't make you weak or useless. Who fucking cares? Because I don't. Isn't that how friendships work? Caring about one another no matter what? Izuku scans the boy's face for a lie or a joke, but Hitoshi was serious as always. He couldn't hold back anymore, and Izuku bursted into tears, burying his face into the crook of his elbow. Shit. Hitoshi scrambled up. Did I say something wrong? I'm not good at the whole friendship thing. Is new to me, and Hitoshi was cut off by the thin form wrapping around his torso. You still want to be my friend? Izuku sobbed into his shirt. Fuck. Hitoshi mumbled and peeled the smaller boy away from him. Only if you still want to be mine. Izuku nodded with excitement. Yeah, so that makes us best friends now, right? You said you don't have any other friends, so that means I don't have anyone to beat. Izuku spoke more firmly. Best friends. Right, Hitoshi? Hitoshi sighed, and the corner of his lips quirked upward. Fucking... Yes, best friends, besties. Izuku smiled while his stomach growled and dug into his backpack just to find that he had no spare food left from his last run. "Hitoshi!" he called, cupping his hands around his mouth, purple hair popping up from the pile of trash, and Hitoshi clambered over, nearly tripping several times. "What?" "It's getting late. Head back to the warehouse and go through the stretching routine. Then we'll continue restraining techniques when I get there." Hitoshi wiped his hands on his pants and frowned. "Where are you going?" Izuku was so used to lying at this point, he responded without a beat. "Just gotta run to tell my mom I'll be home later than usual. My phone's dead." Hitoshi hummed. "Okay, I'll bring the wheelbarrow down then." "Cool." Izuku was already making his way off of the beach. "I won't be long, promise." He heard Hitoshi grumble something from behind, and the squeaky wheelbarrow as more distance grew between the two of them. Izuku slowed into a walk and headed to the large grocery store only a few blocks away. The sun was setting and the temperature was getting a little colder, reminding Izuku that he probably needed to find a laundromat soon to wash his small collection of clothes. He let his mind wander distantly while he played with his dagger, his fingers too lost in thought to notice the sewage cover bubble over while he passed under the bridge. "What's this?" "A perfect skin suit." Izuku spun around at the raspy voice, but it was too late. The cold slime was filling up his mouth and nose. "Just stay still. This won't take long." The villain laughed while the goop began to pour into Izuku's lungs, taking his oxygen away. His eyes began to water as he realized fighting back was pointless. It was impossible to get a grip on slime. Izuku slowly stopped moving. Maybe he'll be able to go with his mom now. He's dying. Why isn't Izuku screaming? Why isn't he scared? The cold texture continued to fill his lungs, and Izuku was now completely limp, closing his eyes. Maybe dying right now wouldn't be so bad. It was what everyone wanted anyways. Hitoshi. No, Hitoshi was waiting for him, on the way at the warehouse right now. Izuku couldn't let his only friend down. Hitoshi was counting on him. A solid, cold object grasped in his hand brought Izuku from his dark thoughts, and he opened his eyes, yelling desperate, the slime into his mouth. "Shut up," the villain said. "Just stay still." Izuku couldn't stay still. He promised Hitoshi he wouldn't be long. Izuku grabbed the knife tighter and brought it to his chest, blade pointing upwards. This was a luck shot. There was no way he could aim for the target, but Izuku thrust the knife upward before he could lose consciousness. The villain screamed as the blade nicked his eye, the only physical part of the monster Izuku knew existed. From the shock, the villain lost his grip on Izuku momentarily. He was able to inhale a brief amount of oxygen, but that was quickly taken away as the slug villain grew more angrier. The slime was back in his throat, and Izuku's sight was growing dark. At least he tried. He tried, yet still failed. Izuku was gonna die. "I am here!" Pardon? There was a large gust of wind and fresh air hit Izuku's skin as he tumbled to the ground, knife still clutched in his hand. He rolled up on his hands and knees and began to cough, green goop splattering just under his face. Izuku looked as he fell onto his back, breathing heavily as he sputtered towards the mass of blue and red. All Might? Toshinori really needed to be more careful on his time management. This is just getting ridiculous. He was walking down the street receiving concerned looks from an older woman with fearful ones from children. Was his small form really that bad? His time in his muscle form has been lowered slowly, but lately it feels like the power is really slipping. Like the flame is being snuffed out. Toshinori sighed out loud and ran a hand through his hair. How was he supposed to find a successor under all this pressure? He was running out of time. Caught in his own thoughts, Toshinori was definitely startled when he spotted some sort of sludge villain, but that wasn't all. No, there was a child, suffocating. Toshinori knew he shouldn't have. It was a huge risk to push his limit, yet what kind of hero lets a child die at their hands? Not the simple piece. Toshinori dropped his shopping bag and pushed himself into his hero form. I am here! With one swing that he calculated would be enough, the rush of wind blew the slug villain apart, and the kid inside blew outward, immediately beginning to cough up some goop. Noticing a notebook that had fallen out of his backpack, Toshinori quickly signed his name, well, All Might's name, and turned back to see the kid staring at him with wide eyes. All Might? He coughed as some slime came out of his nose, and Toshinori gathered the villain into a soda bottle. The child was very small, despite the large clothes. He seemed very tired, yet familiar. Why did he seem so familiar? Thought we lost you there. Toshinori chuckled, remembering he had to get himself out quickly. Glad you're okay. I must be going now. He walked past the boy as he began to speak. All Might, there's something I need to ask you. I have to go, my boy. Villainy is everywhere. Just leave me a message on my website and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. Toshinori felt guilty, knowing he probably would never get around to it. Please, it would only take a moment. Toshinori coughed in his fist and red liquid decorated his hand. Shit, he mumbled. I'll see you around, my boy. Toshinori spat out quickly. He bent his legs, channeling all for one as he leaped towards the skies. He couldn't help but wonder what the boy's question would have. All Might! Toshinori's head snapped down to his leg. The boy was clutching on for dear life. What are you? Toshinori cried. Let go! The boy's green eyes blew open with the speed as he shouted over the wind. If I let go now, I'll die! Fair argument. Toshinori landed on the nearest rooftop and the kid stumbled backwards, leaning over his knees to catch his breath. I'm sorry, I really needed to tell you something. The boy adjusted his beanie on his head, tucking his green curls away. It's just, the boy suddenly got very nervous. You've always been my favorite hero, and I really wanted to be a hero too, but all my life, people have told me I couldn't. I tried to not let it get to me. Toshinori felt himself deflate before his fan, the boy's eyes glued to the ground. Before he could have a chance to flee, he swallowed in the smoke he let out one time. Can I be a hero without a quirk? The boy looked back up, faltered, and sputtered, like he was the one seeing things incorrectly. What? Is all the boy had said in a quiet tone. What happened to you? Toshinori cursed under his breath some more and sat down, leaning against the railing of the roof. He couldn't say anything, as he spoke briefly about his injury and his time limit, but that's all. The kid didn't need to know anymore. And a hero without a quirk? Toshinori repeated out loud. He had been quirkless once too, and he had used to be just as naive as his boy was. Without one for all? Without a quirk? No, you cannot be a hero without a quirk. The boy's neutral expression didn't change, but the green in his eyes appeared as if they'd gotten duller. I encourage you to have dreams, but you have to also be realistic. Perhaps look into another profession, like a cop. They do fine work, although don't always get along with the heroes since we do a lot of their job. Toshinori didn't sign up for this. This wasn't a conversation he wanted to have. He stood up and turned the knob on the door, uneasy for the lack of response from the boy. Not everyone is cut out to be a hero. Toshinori sighed and stepped into the stairwell. Letting the heavy door slam shut behind him, he rubbed his sunken eyes and began his way down, smoothing out his pants until there was nothing in his pockets. The slug villain was gone. Izuku just stood there for a moment, staring at the same spot where All Might deflated, then suddenly turned and flipped off the doorway with both fingers. Stupid All Might! What was he saying? He loves All Might. All Might, he was the never won hero for fuck's sake. The symbol peace, yet the word love turned into loved the day his mom died. It wasn't anyone's fault but the villain, but still. Izuku lost a lot of things that day, including his love and adoration for heroes, and for his love of life in general. Izuku's feet started moving on their own, while his thoughts, what All Might had said. An injury? A time limit? Of course Izuku was going to protect the secrets with his life. the information falling into the wrong hands could be. Explosion suddenly sounded a block away, and Izuku jumped from the loud noise, instinctively holding his arms to protect his face. Kacchan's not here, Izuku muttered to himself as he controlled his breathing, looking at the smoke where it was coming from. Oh, a villain! Izuku automatically began running, but hesitated when he remembered what happened last time he followed a villain attack. His hands tightened on the knife in his pocket, and he ran towards the ruckus anyway because he didn't have anything else to lose anymore, except Hitoshi. If anyone touches Hitoshi, Izuku would commit all world domination. Izuku ran up to the crowd and ran directly into someone, looking up to see maverick eyes on his own. Izuku? Hitoshi said, pushing the wheelbarrow of junk against the side of the closest building. Izuku didn't respond, instead trying to peer around everyone to see. No. But All Might got the villain. How is it possible that slug villain is right here in front of his eyes? Izuku, you look a little, shaken. Is everything okay? Hitoshi's voice was distant. Izuku couldn't focus on anything except for the boy caught in the slug villain, just as he was minutes ago. This isn't Izuku's fault. If he hadn't bothered All Might, if he hadn't made the stupid decision, if he had just let himself die, the kid wouldn't be in this situation. Izuku failed again. The heroes aren't doing anything. The kid was gonna die because of him, because of his failure, just like Mom. Izuku watched the victim's eyes turn to his, teary and red and horrified, and Kacchan? There was nothing after except a knife in his hand, a solid blade, and the only thing that he trusted more besides Hitoshi. The only thing that wouldn't let him down. Izuku! He heard, and Hitoshi's finger grazed his forearm, but Izuku was already moving forward, plowing through the crowd. Heroes were shouting at him. Hitoshi was screaming, but all Izuku could do was raise his arm as he tore his eyes from Kacchan, now locking on his target. It was as if the whole world was crumbling around Izuku, and all he could feel was the knife in his hand. Izuku locked his wrist, took aim, and whipped the dagger without a second thought. Holy shit! I totally forgot this scene. Well, this part, because this ain't canon. Not exactly, but this is awesome. I totally forgot. So if you want to see more of this, see what happens after he takes aim, you know what to do.